and I'll let her play with her mic a little bit while I introduce her. So I add some false things into the bio just to make it work. Okay, so I'm interviewing Gentry Lane. She is the CEO, CTO, and founder of Nemesis. She is, and try to stay awake as I say this, a computational scientist, which is
fascinating.
It's just fascinating. Yeah. I was a nuclear engineer, and I think we're pretty cool next to computational scientists. All right, and then, but more importantly, she's a cyber warrior. She thinks a lot about these issues. She's constantly harassing me on anything I write on cyber force or cyber warfare. So I'm excited to be able to talk to her a little bit, get her perspective on this. And I think this is a tee up for a policy brief that she's doing for FDD, the think tank I'm at. And so I think there's a good opportunity to get some feedback from you all after we do I'll do some basic questions to get the ideas out there. And this really is about, I would say this, it's interesting. You see a new administration come in and they say things like National Security Advisor Walt said, we're going to be more offensive. And I don't think he meant like mean-spirited offensive. I think he meant like more like cyber offensive, right?
They are offensive.
And you know, I think it's really important that smart people who spend a lot of time in this field begin to define what more offensive means. I hope it doesn't mean that we're going to start hackback and letters of marque, but I sometimes get a little nervous when I hear things. So look, I think it is fair to say that then National Security Advisor Waltz was right, though, that we have not done our best in cyberspace. We don't wield cyber power to its best advantage. So, all right, Gentry, the floor is yours. What should we do differently?
A lot. So I was really happy to hear General Stanton this morning talking about looking at the cyber domains, the warfighting domain, from both tactical and operational and strategic points of view. So, what am I talking about? This one,
How should we do it differently?
We should do everything differently. I just want to keep my thoughts honed in. The way we do cyber defense is obstacles plus triage, and that's stupid. It doesn't work. We've got 25 years of showing that does not work. So you have
Can you
to
define what that means? What's an obstacle and what's triage?
Obstacle is like everything in your security stack, and triage is you just fix the places where you're bleeding.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So does that deter things?
No.
Okay.
It deters nothing. In fact, I think it enables the bad guys. So we need to come up with we're working on a cohesive strategy. And then also I know there's like two arguments that we have to be having at the same time, or two discussions, because there's protecting the DODN, and then there's also protecting the civilian sector. And there's issues with posse comitatus, or is there, because we have troops on the ground at the border, troops on the ground in LA right now. So it's tricky.
So if you're developing a strategy for this, where do allies fit in it? Where does the private sector fit in it?
Yeah, well, because it has to be in everybody, and I don't want to say like whole of government or whole of, but all the good guys need to be on the same page. They need to be more or less equitably armed, and a whole lot of the good guys can't afford the sort of tools that vendors sell. So there needs to be, when is it? Oh, yeah, can I say, this is getting piped out to the internet, huh? When I was working at a place,
within 10 miles of here?
No.
Okay, just checking.
We were tasked with trying to figure out if we could discover, or if cyberspace could maintain a condition of deterrence by denial. What is coercion in cyberspace? And I like that because it puts us cyber-y people on the same level as the other warfighting domains. And there's a consistency in operations and in maneuver when you start thinking that way. And again, I'm really happy to hear people talking about campaigning in cyberspace. good idea. That's what bad guys are doing. They're totally campaigning, and we are just sort of like shooting from the hip, or not even shooting from the hip. We're just patching the shark bites with Band-Aids.
So bring it down to, I support what you're saying, but can you give me, like, I'm not saying give me examples, but talk about how we do cyber power across the continuum, the continuum of conflict.
Yeah, so we don't have that in doctrine. Like, it's not, we don't have it anywhere. Any doctrine is, how do we project in both offensive and defensive cyber power in peace, conflict, what are they? Peace, competition, conflict, armed conflict, and war. So in the times of unwar, not war, we're not doing that much. But the bad guys are. And that is the time where you should be using cyber power, because that's the time where you need to be invisible. When you're at war, just invisibility is the best thing about the cyber domain, or I think, and speed. But when you're, in a wartime, who cares about being invisible? In fact, you want the adversary to see you. So the campaigns that we do, or the campaigns that Cyber Command are running, are primarily for you're keeping them engaged, persistent engagement, and destroying infrastructure, adversaries, some of their infrastructure. But the adversaries are pre-positioning the battlefield.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's right. I mean, I hope that we're doing operational preparation of the battlefield. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not going to say for sure we're not. I think, I hope that we do operational preparation of the battlefield of the adversaries. Certainly they do it to us. I mean, that's what Director Ray was talking about last year when he talked about Volt Typhoon. That was, for any of us that do like normal, targeting, that was operational preparation of the battlefield. It was the insertion of malware, or in, I think most cases, the provide, maintaining an access to a system so they could come back in a time of crisis and disrupt or delay or destroy the performance of that asset. So you don't think we do that?
No. Well, first off, it violates the Geneva Conventions, because you don't attack civilian sector assets during times of not war. And even then, there's protected zones. But the bad guys don't care. They're in our hospital systems. They're in our school systems. So they're leveraging cyber power differently than we do. But put that to air power, right? Think about it from an air power point of view. They're coming in with, small attack planes, and we're just hoping they don't bomb or attack or shoot. It's silly that our reactive defensive posture is not sustainable, and especially not sustainable in the cyber domain.
I hope you're not right about us not doing operational preparation of the battlefield. I'm not sure it's a violation of the Geneva Convention to do operational prepreparation of the battlefield.
You can't just go into somebody else's ball bearing factory.
Yes, you can.
Well,
and I hope you're wrong. I hope that we do operational preparation of the battlefield, and I think now I would tell you it would be inappropriate to go to a civilian hospital, and put malware in there, because what's your intent? Your intent is to, at a later date, hope that it turns into a military hospital, and therefore you take it out. Even then, we wouldn't take that out of a military hospital. So I agree with you on the target sets have to be put through an extensive legal review. In fact, I would argue that extensive legal review is what most of us would like to choke the hell out of. Anyone who's worked in targeting, we generally would like to kill a lawyer. And that's okay. You don't kill them, because that's another problem. But you work your way through it. I stipulate that I agree with you. The adversary is doing much more than us in terms of the target set they can go at, because they're not constrained by the same review processes, collateral damage processes,
integrity,
legal review process, all those things. Okay, but I think your broad point's taken, that this is hard and comprehensive stuff that has to be done. I think the other thing you said that really interested me there is about the gray zone. I've found this take a non-cyber review of it, and you tell me what you think. When the Chinese were building the illegal, when they were converting non-island islands into islands in the South China Sea, they did it very slowly, very gradually. And when we confront them, they go, "Oh no! This is so that we can, fishermen when their ship sinks have somewhere to swim to." And we're like, "I don't know about that." And then when it gets developed, they put a building on it. They're like, "Well, we need to put a lighthouse there." So this is the stuff they would tell us. And we're sitting there every 6 months getting these briefs. The whole time they're building and building and building. And then finally they're like, "Well, we have to have a pier there so the fishing ships can pull in so they can get food and water or they'll starve to death." And you're like, "Holy shit." And then finally they put a missile launcher there. They're like, "Well, it turns out it's a military base." And so in the gray zone, we were really played. And what I found is, and I think this is what you're getting at, democracies don't compete well in the gray zone.
No, and they're doing it to us, attacking, like, why would they go after Krispy Kreme or a K through 12 school? Like, what is all of that about? Like, non-critical, non-military assets? But it's the same thing. It's the death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's the, we're doing something sneaking, you're not gonna know until it's too late. And it leads to a gradual, well, you can see it's not even gradual anymore, an erosion of social cohesion. And basically distrust in our institutions, I think.
Well, and I think another thing is that we tend to work with allies and partners. I know we're not perfect with that now these days, but we generally tend to work with allies and partners. And the one thing I found, the one group that's slower than one democracy trying to come to a decision in a gray zone is 2 democracies, or 30, but let's just go with 2 trying to come to a decision. So we in the Philippines struggled with a couple of the spots, to come to, like we didn't want to acknowledge their legal review of the island so that we wouldn't release a statement about it to the Chinese. And I don't know that it would have stopped the Chinese, but it looks pretty pathetic when you can't even get your allies and you to get along on this. By the way, I think that we see that elsewhere in cyber and attribution, where the only thing harder than getting the interagency to do attribution of an attack is to get a coalition interagency to do attribution of attack.
So we figured that out too when I was working at the place.
If you figured that out, it did not evidence itself in a solution that I have seen yet.
So what kind of solution do you get? Or do you get a,
Oh, you mean you figured out that was a problem when you were there? Okay.
Well,
all right, I'm all right with you on that one. But if you've solved attribution, you forgot to leave the recipe behind.
No, we have.
So how fast do you think we do cyber attribution now?
We have to know what's been hit and then run forensics
So how fast do you think
afterward.
the average cyber attribution is?
3 days.
I'm going to go with weeks or months.
Oh.
How fast is the average cruise missile attribution?
Immediate, because we can
30
see it coming.
seconds, maybe a minute if we're slow.
So this is what I studied at the place. I got a couple $1 million to figure out, like, what is the equivalent of a cyber early warning system, what will give us early detection, rapid attribution, streamlined intelligence sharing, privacy preserving, because the intelligence has to go through civilian sector, government, and allied governments, and allied critical infrastructure. And I don't want to give you guys the sales pitch because I'm not the sales guy, I'm the tech guy.
Yeah.
But that's what we built.
That's good. So let me ask this question a different way. So we were very excited back in 2018. After years and years, I shifted from being in uniform to being on the Hill, and Senator McCain said, "I want cyber command campaigning." I mean, he didn't use that language because that sounds too cybery. He said, "I want cyber command breaking things," I think is what he said. Doesn't matter. And so a guy named Josh Steifel, who I think is here today.
We love.
Yeah, he and I wrote some legislation together to make cyber surveillance and reconnaissance a traditional military activity. So that was done now. It was passed in August of 2018. So it's now 7 years later. What's your thoughts on how's campaigning going?
Well, okay, campaigning, we're campaigning for campaigning's sake. What is our ends? We don't have a desired ends. Like, what are we doing this for? The bad guys know they're doing it to degrade our systems, to weaken us, to make us too distracted or unwilling or unable to respond when they attack us. What are we doing to them? We don't know. Every single department puts out a cyber strategy. It's not a cyber strategy because they don't use the words ways, means, and ends in it. So how can that be a strategy? It's like a list of lofty cyber goals. We don't need that. We need a strategy. Well, first we need a grand strategy. And we need a grand strategy that fits in the main grand strategy. And then we need several different strategies supported by campaigns and other lines of effort that address all the different conflicts that we're in today. And the conflicts, I think, can be broken down by nation state.
So, what would why do you think we can't get a strategy? I mean, it sounds like you feel that over the last 7 years we can't get a strategy. Why do you think we can't get a strategy?
Because no one listens to me and Emily.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm afraid that's not on my bingo card of like shit that stops the government from working. I mean, I'll take that as a tactically true statement.
Yeah.
But kind of operationally, strategically, why can't we write a strategy that does that?
Well, I can. I did.
No, I don't mean you. I mean the government. And this is a hard question. I don't disagree with you. I think we all sit here. I spent my whole lifetime breaking things with kinetic weapons, and I never felt, there were limitations on it, but the limitations were logical ones that were workable. Either you could or couldn't do something, you got permission. If you didn't, you worked an alternate, you got it done. And you very quickly knocked out your lines of effort, led to your strategic goals, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah, and you understood commander's intent and what the objective was, the mission objective.
I don't see that in cyber. Why do you think we can't get that?
I don't know, because we should. I think there's a dearth of cyber like in the Venn diagram of life, cyber strategists, like military strategists who have really studied military theory, and technologists, like they don't. I'm the only one in there. They don't overlap.
No,
but you have to have technologists. I know you guys all say, "Well, I don't know how to fly. I don't have to know how to."
I'm not 100% sure I buy that.
You will not know the constraints and opportunities unless you have a nerd in there with you saying, "But why didn't you think of this?"
I agree, but we do write really good air campaign plans with different individual people with skill sets in there that are brought together and collectively produced.
Now we do.
What you say?
But we did not at the beginning of World War II, at the dawn of air power.
Yeah.
We totally fucked that up.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and that's where we are here in the cybers. It's kind of like that. It's like a.
All right. To make sure that we get to a solution here in the last 5 minutes, let's get this right. I don't agree. You've identified the problem. I agree you've identified the problem. I don't disagree with you. But, and look, we struggled with this on the Steering Commission. I struggled, like, because we had fights over whether deterrence was a useful strategic framework for cyber. I think we have a lot of trouble describing cyber effects. We still struggle to describe cyber effects properly to kinetic generals. I still think they have trouble understanding what will the effect be, what's your acquisition, like it took me a while, but I eventually understood when I was briefed by the Tomahawk guys or the JASM guys, what 93.6% PK meant, what medium confidence of target unable to generate, sorties back at you. You know what I mean? Each of those things were things a normal human could learn. I still think we struggle. I'm going to call myself a cyber person, I'm not a good one, but we or you cyber technologists struggle to properly identify terminology that can be used by your non-cyber technologist customers. And the other word for those customers is bosses.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think that until we get that right, until there's a level of comfort, I'm still waiting to see the first time we do a cyber strike only on a SEAD system and then have the F-30, a non-stealth fighter, fly through there to go strike something. Who here thinks that a COCOM is going to approve that plan? You think a COCOM?
I want to chime in here. Sally Kenyon Grant for Machine Learning Warfare, COCOM contract. Every single time I come back to the attack path,
Yeah.
If you look at what the attack is 5 seconds ago, and you take to compliment to your point about the commanders, C2, whatever, they have to be seeing that. So if they are not getting attack path briefings every 15 minutes, oh, well, 2 years ago, we're gonna write that policy, that requirement. No. 10 minutes ago, it changes. That's what we have to match. We have to stay on the attack path from Fort Meade. We have a few commanders in the room. Good to see you, sir. And that's where we have to take a look at it.
Why do you think? I agree. Why do you think?
I think that the missing element there is the cyber PDA. I think that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes.
So, because the only way the co
That's her last bullet here, by the way, and the points I was supposed to ask. But go, take the wind out of her sails, please.
But the co-com commander needs to understand that.
He needs to see it.
He needs to see it.
Yeah.
He needs to understand that the effect happened.
Yeah.
Just like looking at Desert Storm.
That's a great point.
The
You-
commander getting that briefing from
But
NSA.
here, I like
That's
this
a
good point.
technology problem.
Hold
We
on,
can do
no,
that.
but I'll give you one other problem though. Like if I want to know how a JASM works, you can take me to Nellis,
Absolutely.
and you can show me a video, and it blows. I go, oh, fuck, I get that. Now you try to do it with a cyber, it's so much harder to,
So I would respectfully argue.
Yeah.
There are so many laboratories, just in this, like here.
I know,
where
but
you
it's.
get to see the cyber in real time.
Does it look like? Does it look like a JASM breaking a building?
If it's on my
It doesn't
track,
explode.
No, but I know. That's what I mean. I don't know the answer to this question, but it bedevils me because I was the commander asking for it for 6 years. Finally, get the SNR, and now it's not producing, and I kind of understand why. I don't know the answer, but I'm good. Does anybody else have a thought on that? Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So what you're looking for is first order effect.
Yeah.
What you're not going to get is a first order effect.
Yeah.
You'll get a second and third order effect. So if you, for instance, as an exercise, not real world, shut a campus down or shut a weapon system down in an exercise, you'll get that attention because that is a real world kinetic.
Yeah.
What people don't understand most of the time is how
Tremendous.
much IP and our protocol is integrated with everything and what that attack surface really is. Now, until they see that attack, it's not a realized threat.
Yeah.
So
That's a great point.
there's threats from all over the place, and everything can be conceived as a threat, but how much of a reality is that threat? And what is the frequency of that going to actually be able to happen?
Well, wouldn't it be wonderful if someone built something that showed the real-time security status of every endpoint in your system?
Yeah. No,
You don't want to see it.
No, I will tell you, the reason I think you're exactly right is I remember, I mean, we all know Tyson Meadows, pain in the ass lieutenant commander, but when Tyson Meadows was an okay Lieutenant JG, you know, he dreamed up B+. And that was the first time that we as Navy admirals like went, oh shit, now we're, you know, we saw an almost first order effect. I would say it was a second order effect, but it was pretty close to first order effect. When your engines don't work, you know, you got a problem on a Navy ship.
You can do that with the Tesla and a few
Yeah.
other vehicles.
Greg, you had a
General?
question?
Actually, a comment. First of all, on the suppression of enemy air defenses, there has in fact been.
That was me, so you could point at me, all right? Yeah, thanks.
There have in fact been operations where we've done that.
Yeah, but was it the only tool? Or did it get followed by a JASM ER, or in that case, a harm?
The best employment, and this is from a recovering cyber operator and retired airman, the best effects that get the best results from both the leadership acceptance and acknowledgement, as well as operational effects, are part of the combined arms operations.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The biggest problem, I believe, within the cyber professional side of the house is replacement. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the green door that we don't share or we feel we can't share with some of those folks that are out there. It's almost like in Get Smart, the original series with
The cones of silence.
the Cone of Silence.
All right. Thanks. Greg, I accept a lot of that. I don't put the blame on the community as much. I still blame people like me, you know, kinetic admirals and generals who have trouble absorbing it. I really think that's the number one problem. But here's the deal, they're not going to fix themselves. they were lucky enough to become an admiral general, so the last thing they're going to do is like dramatically change the way they are. So I think, the reason we wanted to talk about this is we need the community to continue to think about how you talk about this, how you bring them. I mean, I liked what both of you said there, but I would say you're in a co-com that thinks hard about it. But how do we get? I mean, how do we get this in the normal narrative and the normal dialogue? I'm telling you right now, I'm gonna go up to a war game at Newport, and there will be, quote, a cyber set aside. Like, we'll do the war game, and then, well, how's cyber playing this? Well, fuck, it should have, excuse my language, it should have been playing, it should have been not a question. No one goes, how did the submarines play in this? They were played. How does air power play? It's played, yeah.
So I got one for you. PACE plan, not cyber, PACE.
Yeah.
Can the commands and services exercise a true PACE?
Yeah.
And I don't mean having 2 satellite dishes. That's one capability.
Yeah.
Can you exercise PACE? So if you can't do that, then if you're asking somebody to shut down an exercise where there's a whole bunch of people watching and wanting success, that's going to be hard.
Yep.
I'm sorry, what's PACE?
Primary, alternate, contingency, emergency.
Emergency.
Or primarily on comms.
How much time do we have left?
We're actually.
We're at time?
To keep pace with the talks.
Yeah, hey, give me 30 seconds to wrap us up. First of all, this is fantastic. The whole idea is to get a conversation going. What I want is, if I had my druthers, people would think and write about this. And then tell me if you're not getting published. I'll get someone to publish it for you. This isn't hard. Seriously, if you come to me, I'll get one of the the defense news things to put it. We have to talk about this. Don't make it too boring. But if I could do one other thing, just in case you think you're the lowest, like we're the least understood, worst treated, blah, 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 look across the street at the electronic warfare people, because they have a lot less money, a lot less people, and even less attention, even though we all know they have some wicked good tools. I'm shocked. Every once in a while, when I think cyber is the biggest thing we've effed up in the military, I look across electronic warfare and I say, okay, we're only second. So please think about this, write about it. I know that Nemesis and organizations like it, companies like it might be able to provide some of these tools, but part of it's the language and part of it's continue to work. And you would think after 12 years of Cyber Command, this isn't a problem. It's a problem. By the way, if you had a cyber force and you had all these people professionally trained in this and going out, you'd be in great shape. See me in about a year and congratulate me. All right, thanks.